Hello everyone, I am Aydogan Vatandas, the editor-in-chief of Politurco.com. Today I am joined by Dr. Emre Uslu for the second time. He is a well-known political commentator, he is an author, and he also is a well-known scholar based in Washington. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Uslu.
Thank you for having me.
So today I want to talk about the recent developments in Turkey. Just a few days ago, we heard a new name, Court Mascara. This name was revealed by the Turkish mobster located in United Arab Emirates. So, Mr. Seda Pecker, can you please tell us about what he revealed about that particular person, Court Mascara? What did he reveal about that, and why is that name important for the new developments in Turkey?
Well, the Court Mascara is a political figure, I would say, an orchestrator of the dark side of politics in Ankara. And Seda Pecker revealed his name and stating that first of all, he's coming from a leftist family, and he has nothing to do with the Islamist AKP background. But currently, he is one of the chief advisors to Tayyip Erdoğan, and he is also in charge of AKP party. I think he is a deputy in the AKP's local municipality, whatever, the organization. And
what was the revelation about this gentleman?
The revelation is about that he was providing services, to
some sensitive services.
Yeah, I mean, how should we call it? I mean, he was
the
providing
prostitution related services
to politicians, and through which he made his career. And don't forget that Deniz Baykal, the former head of the opposition party CHP, was ousted by his party by an infamous sex tapes, I believe back in 2010, right?
Right, absolutely. And before that, Mr. Uslu, can you please tell us what CHP refers in Turkish political history?
Well, the CHP is a party that founded the Republic, the Turkish Republic. And since then, I would say between the foundation of Republic in 1923 to 2011, CHP was one of the backbones of the Turkish Deep State. And this party always cooperated with the military and intelligence units of this country. And whenever you have a diplomat who's retiring from their careers, or a former general or former intelligence agencies, we see that if they have a future, if they're looking for a political future, usually they ended up in the CHP.
So Deniz Baykal was the leader of this party?
Yes, Deniz Baykal was the leader of this party, and especially after 2002, when the intelligence agencies and military decided to shift Turkey's direction from the pro-Western NATO alliance into Eurasianist perspective, which was revealed in 2001 by Tuncer, I forget
Çetinkaya. Four-star Air Force General Tuncer Çetinkaya.
Tuncer Pasha, let's say.
Tuncer Pasha, sorry about that.
And he stated that Turkey should
Tuncer Kılınç.
Tuncer Kılınç, yeah.
Tuncer Çetinkaya was a friend of mine. He was a journalist. I'm sorry about that.
So Tuncer Kılınç, when Tuncer Kılınç revealed that, and that started from that moment on until his ousting from the CHP, Deniz Baykal was the head of this leading figures in anti-Western, anti-American movements, parallel with the Turkish Deep State operations. And Deniz Baykal was very forceful doing very forceful opposition to Erdoğan government, especially back in 2007 and 2009. And he led people to march into remember the Cumhuriyet meetingleri, the Republican meetings, and along the line of Ergenekon networks. And CHP leader, the CHP leader, Deniz Baykal stated that he is the advocate, the lawyer of Ergenekon network, while Erdoğan was saying that he is the prosecutor of his Ergenekon investigation. So mysteriously, while this heated debate was going on between two titans, let's say, and Deniz Baykal mysteriously removed from the scene of the politics.
And how did it happen?
By revealing his sex tape with one of his deputies.
So, what is the relation between Court Mascara and that particular incident, which triggered his being sidelined from the Turkish politics?
Surprisingly enough, when we look at Court Mascara's bio and his progress in its, or his relations with this incident, and as soon as he becomes the advisor, one of the top right wing of Deniz Baykal, and this sex tape was revealed, and it is well documented that the former, later the Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the new head of the CHP, revealed that the order of the sex tape to record it and reveal it came from Erdoğan. So, should we call it coincidence? or what? When Court Mascara, now the chief economic advisor to Erdoğan, become
so he has an office in Erdoğan's palace.
Yes, when he becomes the chief advisor to Deniz Baykal, Deniz Baykal's sex tape was revealed, and later on, surprisingly, that he ended up being right next to Erdoğan. And Seda Pecker said, well, he continued to provide prostitutes to Deniz Baykal. And he even wanted Seda Pecker to involve one of the incidents that went on the sideline with unplanned development. And he wants his power to simply silence the family. And Seda Pecker, according to his narrative, rejected this. Then we see, this is how his name, Court Mascara's name, came into being. But when I investigated Court Mascara further on, and Court Mascara is an interesting figure. He went to university. And I found his high school buddies. I'll talk with them. And he went to university. He was an average guy. And despite the fact that he went to a private college, it's called Marmara College, he was only able to enter into a mediocre university in Anatolia. Normally, you would expect someone, from Anatolians, very poor high schoolers would go to this university. But this person goes from top private college to mediocre university.
Interesting.
Even there, he was not able to finish the university. And then, according to his bio, he states that he graduated from an outside university, somewhere from a foreign country, but we don't know which country
it is.
And his friends told me that I think he went to 18 months military service, which is interesting. Normally, in a university student, university graduate, do not go to military service this long. And later on, at the young age, one of the allegations against him that he simply embezzled money from a well-known company, Demirören Group,
right.
Around Maltepe. And later on, he started his career. So he is a dark figure from the get-go.
Right.
From the young age to his education life, and then his relations with the politicians.
So that,
and therefore, this reflects the dark side of Turkish politics. I think we need to reveal to those who follows Turkey but do not know much about the dark side of Turkey and Turkish politics. We needed to understand how deep state operates and what happened after 2010, and then why Court Mascara is an important figure in this context.
Right. Dr. Uslu, when you investigate his photographs in the internet, so you see that he has photographs with almost every important politician, businessman in Turkey. So it is so interesting that when this guy asks a politician to record a video message for him, they do it, and they sent a video record for his birthday. So how do you analyze it? How do you interpret that? Is it, I mean, why do these all important politicians record celebration messages for him and send it to him? I mean, do you think that they might owe this guy something?
Well, in order to understand this, we needed to understand the Turkey's deep state and how it operates.
So you think that this guy might be related to the Turkish state maybe for years? So he was recording everything. So Deniz Baykal might not be the only person who was recorded by him or by the Turkish deep state.
Well, I don't know whether by him alone. I think it's, when I look at, I've been investigating the figures from Turkish deep state. And when you are investigating this dark side of Turkish politics, you always come to a point that there are things that you cannot explain. You cannot explain. This guy is one of those figures.
I see.
That I came across, and I have a highly suspected of him. For instance, we don't know how well he can speak English.
Right.
And
does he speak English?
I think so, because he went to private college.
Got it.
We don't know how much.
Right.
And interestingly enough, for instance, let me give you one of the findings that I found but not concluded yet. When Russian Gazprom, the natural gas company, the Russian giant that is selling Russian natural gas, was bringing gas to Turkey, and this guy somehow involved in these processes, and I found his fingerprints on that. You would expect, especially in 1990s, you would expect that Gazprom would cooperate or work with big families like Koç or Sabancı.
Right.
Especially under Mesut Yilmaz, where Koç was very, very much involved in supporting his government. But mysteriously, this guy's company, and a company that I believe it's a Swedish company, involved, and this guy has a fingerprint on that company. So the more I investigate, the more I find interesting.
So you're talking about Court Mascara?
Yes.
Court Mascara has some fingerprints in a Swedish company which has affiliation with Gazprom.
Yes.
A Russian company.
Yes, and normally that is not a normal thing that you would expect. These types of.
So you're talking about the Russian connection?
I think so.
Might be.
I mean, and when the deep state was simply cooperating and trying to turn its face to Eurasia, and this is what happened usually, those mysterious companies pops up and strike the deals. Don't forget, Koç and Sabancı was well known for their affiliations with the West.
With the West, European Union,
and the Western companies.
United States as well.
Yeah, Toyota, all others. And the when Gazprom was coming, and they found their own, like-minded companies and tried to enter into a Turkish market. So these types of mysterious connections made me think that this guy might have some deep state relations, and that's why those politicians and well-known figures are simply praising him in his birthday videos, which was odd by itself.
So you're always talking about how the Turkish state designs the politics. So when we talk about the Turkish state, we refer to the Turkish military in the past, but right now I think we should talk about Turkish intelligence service right now, which designs the Turkish politics. So so when we focus on Seda Pecker's revelations, Seda Pecker seems that it is really shaking the Turkish politics with tectonic waves. So who do you think Seda Pecker represents in that, in that picture? Do you think that he represents the Ergenekon deep state network, or are we talking about an unknown, identified, invisible power structure?
Well,
what do you think?
We need to understand what happened in Turkey between 2011 and onward. What happened in 2011 when Erdoğan came to power with the 50% of support? And at the time, it was the moment that Erdoğan had finally defeated Turkish military establishment. And Turkish military establishment, I believe it was in 2011, forced generals resign, and Erdoğan did not care, and the public simply did not pay much attention, and it accepted as a new normal. And finally, Erdoğan stopped the influence of Turkish military. Aside with that, it was in 2010 and 11 that Erdoğan appointed Hakan Fidan as the chief of Turkish intelligence agency, and his well-known confidant. And in the same year that those tectonic waves that you're talking about, all these things happened in 2010 and 11. In the same year, Turkish military's intelligence capability, signal intelligence, was transferred to Turkish intelligence agency.
Absolutely.
Simply, it reduced the military's institutional power, political power, and economic power through OYAK and all other banking systems, and through which Erdoğan controlled this powerful institutions and shifted Turkey's traditional deep state operatives under the control of Hakan Fidan. Not surprisingly, this was the year that the Deniz Baykal's sex tape was revealed. And not surprisingly, this was the year that the Ergenekon trial was simply came to the end, and he said that these waves are becoming too much, right? So all these shifts shows that Turkish deep state structure simply shifted from the control of Turkish military under the control of Erdoğan and Hakan Fidan. So when you have this shift and you needed to remove one of the important figures or few of the important figures. One was Deniz Baykal, which was removed from the politics with the sex tape. Another figure was İlker Başbuğ, which was he was jailed. Another figures were those four-star generals, which was simply sidelined by their resignations. So simply, when we look at 2010, we see that Turkish politics shifted, and those power has shifted in favor of Erdoğan under the control of Hakan Fidan. When I was asked by Wall Street Journal, I believe it was in 2012, who was the most powerful person, the second person, I told them it was Hakan Fidan, and at the time, some of the politicians, some of the pundits said, no, it is two exaggerations. But time showed that Hakan Fidan is certainly the absolute spy masters and control all these dark sides of the story. And when it comes to Seda Pecker,
right?
Seda Pecker tried to cope with Hakan Fidan and new deep state.
Right. Because let's remind our followers and the audience that Seda Pecker always says that his whole life was in the States, but he was never employed by a regular institution. So he refers to some cover operations, which is probably the special war unit, Özel Harp Dairesi in Turkish. He probably refers to that organization, but because the Turkish military was sidelined, the Erdoğan government during the time, so MIT replaced that power. But Seda Pecker represents the traditional old deep state structure. Yes,
the old school deep state structures. And now we are at the juncture of new shift.
Right.
And in upcoming months and years, Erdoğan wanted to completely get rid of all these old school deep state structure. And
do you think that he will be able to? Do you think that he will be able to succeed in that? Because what we see is that Seda Pecker is really shaking Erdoğan's power circle.
Well, we'll see, and we'll see how deep the Erdoğan's influence on Turkish state structure, and how powerful the resistance forces in the system. And certainly, Seda Pecker is his revelations shook Erdoğan's operations, especially his revelations on Cihan Ekşioğlu was one of the important one, I believe, as important as Court Mascara. But we will see. We will see how powerful Erdoğan is. Therefore, so to answer your question, that Seda Pecker represents those old school intelligence officials that I believe he receives information, and actually he stated that he receives information, and I think that he's telling the truth on that.
Dr. Uslu, don't you see that Mr. Seda Pecker also targets people related to, for example, old states power structure? For example, Ekim Alptekin. Ekim Alptekin was the person who paid General Mike Flynn to work against Gülen movement in the United States and to extradite Mr. Gülen to Turkey at that time. So he's also wanted by the American government right now. But when you examine the relations of Ekim Alptekin, he is affiliated with Vatan Partisi and Doğu Perinçek. He has connection. What is it?
His father.
His father was connected to Doğu Perinçek, but he is definitely part of that old secular ultra-nationalist circles. If I'm mistaken, please correct me.
Well, I delved into his story as well.
I remember that.
A couple of interesting pieces from his past, including his father's relations as well as Bijan Kian. Well, he was calling himself as Bijan Kian. Yeah. And in Turkish records, I found that his name was referred as Bijan Kian. I remember. So simply, when it comes to this guy, Ekim Alptekin, he came under the radars in Turkey, I believe, in 2010-ish, when those shift is taking place. And he took his side on Erdoğan, despite the fact that his leftist background and lavish lifestyles and so on and so forth. He was the new generations of these operatives that he came And perhaps because the old school Turkish deep state would never do the mistake that they have done, right. And perhaps that's why they consider these people as a burden rather than an
right.
asset.
So they consider him as a burden right now. They just want to get rid of him.
Yes.
So that's why Seda Pecker attacked him, and other nationalist circles are also attacking him. So that's why they want to just get rid of him.
Absolutely. I mean, these people, don't forget, choose their side on Erdogan's when the fight was still going on. And therefore, they think that these people simply betrayed their past, their history, and therefore they no longer accept them in. But still, however, the fight continues. Kemal Atakin has chosen his side on the side of Erdogan, and he had to stick with Erdogan until he find a way to appeal his case to the higher authority, or whoever that might be, to the Ergenekon network, and get accepted again, which is possible, by the way, when you think of Turkish deep state structure. So all in all, what has happened in 2010 is that Turkish deep state structure shifted from military to intelligence, pretty much went under the control of Erdogan and Hakan Fidan. However, there are some resistance forces, some elements left outside, and the Turkish Erdogan started establishing a new regime after July 15 stage coup attack. And then Erdogan convinced some of those old elements of the old deep state. Court Mascara was one of them, and therefore he just becomes the top advisors without any significant, vetting from the party. Perhaps because he was already working with Erdogan and Hakan Fidan when he was simply staging a plot against Deniz Baykal. And then right now, as Erdogan regime entering into a new stage within economic problems, international problems, and so on and so forth, and the health concern that some questions Erdogan's future, and therefore we see a fight between old representative of deep state and the new ones. Right.
What about some external dynamics, external factors that played some important roles in Turkish politics, especially United States and European Union? You already mentioned about Russia and Euro-Asianist ties, but what about the United States? Seda Pecker right now is located in United Arab Emirates, and we know that United Arab Emirates is a close ally to United States, along with United Kingdom. But we know that United States has great influence in United Arab Emirates. So Seda Pecker stopped his video just a day before the NATO summit, a day before the meeting between Erdoğan and President Biden. Do you think that United States might have played some role to have some influence on the United Arab Emirates authorities to tell Seda Pecker to stop his videos at least for a while, because he said that he was taken by the United Arab Emirates authorities almost for a day, and after that meeting with the United Arab Emirates authorities, he said that it's not safe to make these videos at least for a while. So what do you think? If Seda Pecker is conveying the messages of Ergenekon, which is very anti-American, in that case, do you think that there's a possibility that United States might have some influence on Arab Emirates to tell Seda Pecker to stop his videos? What do you think?
I think we need to clarify one thing, that after the big blow against Eurasianist fractions within the Turkish state, some of them I mean, they lost, the Eurasianists lost their unitary forms or actions, and they went, they are very much fractured.
Right.
And some of them, like Doğu Perinçek from Vatan Group, took the side of Erdogan, and others went other directions. So when we look at the Seda Pecker, do not please consider that as the Ergenekon as a monoblock is using him and trying to simply change the regime. I don't see it that way. What I see is that the old school deep state who think that they are going to be removed by Erdogan.
Right.
Is resisting. I don't see much of an international angle in this.
Right.
I think it is purely, and I would say, well, 90% is domestic struggle than international. But however, international actors in these situations always, try to make advantages for themselves and for their interests. And when it comes to American involvement, I think it is too far-fetched to suggest that Americans went out there and suggested Seda Pecker to stop through whatever channel. But it is likely, however, that some group from Turkey may
have used Americans.
No, Saudis or influential figures in United Arab Emirates to convince them to stop.
But Turkey doesn't have good relations with Saudi Arabia as well.
Well, do
you think they might find?
These are intelligence dark areas that on the surface they fight, but behind the scene they cooperate in many areas. And of course, when it comes to give or take and transactional relations, I think these types of regimes are best when it comes to those transactions, because you don't have to sit down and agree on norms and values. You have to sit down and agree on transactions. And there are, in Turkish media speculates that the group of people went to Saudi Arabia and said, well, we will not push further Jamal Khashoggi case if you stop Seda Pecker. I think this is more like the scenario than Turkish intelligence reach out to CIA and use their influence. Why would CIA use their influence if the CIA wants? I think CIA wants to get rid of Erdogan, and they would love to.
I mean, are we that certain that CIA or United States or NATO really want to get rid of Erdogan? I mean, do you think that this picture is so clear? Look at, for example, Afghanistan. So Turkey accepted the duty to protect the Kabul airport, so which the Americans do not want to do that. They don't want to do that. They just want to leave Afghanistan and leave that very difficult task to Turkish military. And the Turkish military will, may have to fight the Taliban, which is a really difficult task. And we remember what the ISIS have done to Turkish soldiers in North Syria. So Turkey is accepting that duty in return of what?
Well,
what is, do you think that Erdogan is extending his political career by giving this kind of things to NATO, to United States?
Whenever Turkey went authoritarian tendency, they always sell Turkey's important strategic position. I mean, it was done by Kemalists and it's been done by Erdogan regime as well. And simply, it's just like, don't forget, right after 9/11, and the head of NATO missions in Afghanistan was a Turkish guy and former Turkish foreign minister, I believe, Hikmet Çetin. Yes, and it was in 2001 before Erdogan. So it is a typical Turkish policy to sell whenever NATO and the West needed Turkish military, which as a cheap soldier, they send it to gain or buy legitimacy, quote unquote, from the West. And this is not much different than what Ecevit did in 2001. And now, 20 years later, Erdoğan is doing the same thing. So I don't see. If Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu was in power, I think he would have done the same thing.
The same thing.
So I don't see that connection. And I think CIA or Americans hate Erdoğan. However, they cannot anticipate what happened after Erdoğan's fall. And
they don't see what happens next.
Yeah, what happens next when Erdoğan is removed or gone? What would happen? Certainly, they don't want to see
Turkey.
Yeah, to destabilize or what is it called? Failed state or failing state. And
they don't want another Syria.
Yeah, and another Egypt. But the irony here is this: the more they allow Erdoğan to stay in power, the higher the chance that Turkey will fall into one of the chaotic or failed states, as we had seen in the case of Egypt, in the case of Libya, and in the case of Saddam Hussein. As you simply extend the duration of dictatorships, and what you end up having is that a chaos. And that is the dilemma, but I think their options are very limited. As Joe Biden pointed out, that they wanted to support the opposition and find and prepare them once Erdoğan regime is over. I think this is what they're doing right now, but it doesn't mean that they're cooperating with Erdoğan. I think they love to see that Erdoğan is gone in a democratic fashion.
Dr. Uslu, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. Today, I was joined by Dr. Emre Uslu, a political commentator, an author, and investigative journalist. Thank you so much for watching us.
Thank you very much.